Hey everybody, and welcome back to the another edition of the Binance podcast. And today we're on video. We're working in conjunction with Block TV to get some video content out there for our listeners. So today I'm very happy to be joined by Viktor Radchenko, who is the founder of Trust Wallet. As some of you know, the Binance acquired Trust Wallet last year, and we've been working very closely together to basically push out the Trust Wallet product, which we believe to be the best wallet app for crypto in the world to all of our users, not just Binance users, but I think to users around the world. And then in conjunction with the launch of the Binance decentralized exchange, Trust Wallet has actually provided a very seamlessly integration with the DEX, and really happy to be joined by Viktor. I think we're gonna spend about 30 minutes here, Viktor. Spend about 5 minutes about how you came into Trust Wallet, and then maybe about another 15, 20 minutes about what's it like since you've been working with the team here at Binance, and now you're part of our family. And then next, sort of most exciting part, what do we have to look forward in terms of features and products? Because I know we've been adding Trust Wallet has been adding features basically nonstop since we started working together. All right.
Yeah. Hey, Wei. It's nice to be here. So I'm happy to share, my story, what happened. So Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So how did you came upon sort of the cryptocurrency and Trust Wallet as a whole in terms of your background, and because I know you have a really badass story from the early days. You're still quite young, but even when you're in your early years, now in your late years.
Yeah, so I think, if we're going to start from like a story, how I got into crypto, I think it's all started back in 2012 when I first learned about the Bitcoin and also Silk Road at the same time. I haven't used it. I just heard from a friend who was my neighbor, and he just showed me all this like exciting things that you could do on the blockchain. And he's like, I'm so like pumped about Bitcoin. I got it like 4,000 worth of Bitcoin. At that point, it was like $9 a piece. Which was like pretty interesting. And he told me about the story. I was like, yeah, it's interesting, but he was just buying drugs. And then I was like, yeah, I don't need that. But it was something that I got first my exposure. And then in probably like 2 years after, that's when I acquired my Bitcoin. And that was like back in 2013. And then it was kind of interesting because I got it the day before China banned Bitcoin. So it was like really amazing for everyone. Then everything just crashed. And I was like, oh, wow, it's not something sustainable. And then probably a couple of years after, my friend who used to work for Bread Wallet, he told me about this new coin that just came out back in 2016. He said like, oh, there's Ethereum, you should go and buy some. And I just went and buy some. And then I just forgot about it for about a year. And then I come back and, Ethereum now is like $300. I was like, wow, that's interesting. And so that's when I started learning more about like crypto, how it all works and kind of details. I just went to acquire some tokens because that's what Ethereum was good at. And then I just got some tokens, and then I was like, man, this is my Ether Wallet website. I just couldn't figure out how to use it, too complicated. And then I thought like, oh, let me build a better version because I'm an iOS developer and I've been building apps for the past like 7 years. And so I just built one, open sourced everything, and then that's how it all started for Ethereum. And then at some point, once we went through like 2017, 18, I think the interesting part was that there was like gold rush in Ethereum. Lots of people were getting into crypto. And then at some point, the challenge was like, how do you make the product sustainable? Because if you're a wallet, there's not many things you can monetize. And, if you have a team of like 10 people, that's going to be super expensive to you. That's when, I met you guys. So I'm super excited for joining to Binance because, I'm a product person. I don't like to deal with business as much. So for me, it's all about like building products and then just having, good people around me that will help me with resources. So yeah, that's how it's all happened.
Yeah. And I think that part is interesting because when we first met, Trust Wallet was essentially just an ERC20 wallet.
Yeah, exactly. Right? So at that point,
that was almost exactly a year ago. But a lot has happened in the last year for Trust Wallet.
Yeah, exactly. So I think at that point, it was all about Ethereum. And so, usually when you're trying to tackle any problem, you want to like focus on 80% of the problems. So at that point, I think ERC20s were 80% of the market if you look at it. But then what happened, right? It's like all these companies raised lots of money for funding their projects. And then this is the time when we realized that what users really want is to have, a wallet that supports all the digital assets. And so our challenge was like, how do you build something sustainable? How we can support so many different blockchains, because every blockchain would have their own crypto implementation and then transaction signing, different kind of REST APIs. And so this is the time when we started realizing that we need to build something that's sustainable, something that's open source, and anyone could just contribute to the wallet. And since then, we worked on something that's called Wallet Core. It's open source library that allows anyone to integrate any blockchain. And so since then, we integrated over 30 different blockchains. So including
for me, that was the amazing part. Just seeing that you guys been able to add, continuing to add different blockchains to support, and the speed at which you guys have been able to move in doing so.
Yeah, exactly. So I think there's two parts to it. So the first, like probably 10 blockchains, we did everything ourselves because there was no one else. But then probably like 6 months later, because we're able to open source this and create all the documentation for any companies to come in and integrate it. Since then, we saw like another like 20 blockchains coming and integrating. And then it kind of worked for them and for us because they have incentives to be supported on Trust Wallet, and it's incentive for us to help them to add integration. So I think it worked for us in both cases, and that's why we were able to like integrate so many blockchains.
And I think one of the things that I've been amazed at is just sort of the really decentralized nature of not just your product in terms of the design of it and actually the implementation of it, but also your team. You have people. I mean, we're at like 15 people now, but then you guys are basically distributed all over the world.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because we have like 12 people right now in total, and so if you count how many countries there is probably like 8 different countries. So pretty much every person lives in a different city in our team. So it's really kind of decentralized in that sense. But at the same time, we're able to push the product and work really effectively.
Yeah. How? Because I think that part is really interesting, right? Because I think I've met most of the people on your team, and it seems like everybody shares a certain type of energy and certain type of background in terms of having that not like that hacker mentality. It seems like.
Yeah, exactly. So I think half of our team is like everyone is like super crazy about like crypto in general. So and then half of our
that's a given, right? If you don't like crypto, then that's a price.
Crazy in a good sense, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think half of our team joined from the open source movement. So when we were building this open source tooling, we only had like a few people full time on the team. And then once we got like support from Binance, this is the time when we started to get more people on the team. And so half of our team just came from the open source because they were willing to help to work on these problems. And it was like kind of good fit for both of us. So now we have 12 people, and it's doing pretty well.
How do you manage, or do you do any managing as
a
leader?
As a leader, I think my goal is, I still contribute most of my time. So I just try to help everyone to kind of give all the resources they need in terms of the knowledge and the problems that we're currently trying to solve. But the main challenge for me is like to share the story and like the problems we're trying to solve. So I think that's the main idea. And I'm not trying to manage anyone just because like I'm a developer. Like that's what I like to do the most. So work on the product rather than like just do management. But at the same time, we have really good people on the team who are self-managed. So they do everything by themselves. And we always like have different chats about like the problems we're solving and like where we kind of moving forward.
So it's quite of a collaborative effort then in terms of
exactly yeah. And that's not the only way. Yeah, I think that's the only way to do it when you're like decentralized team, because everyone in different locations. So there is not much you could do. Like most of the team would work when I'm asleep or vice versa.
Yeah. And do you feel like in terms of your background, because I think from talking to you and then listening to some of the things that you've either both written and talked about on other media formats, you have a really incredible life story. Do you feel like that contributed to sort of like the unity that you've been able to build amongst your team, because as their fearless leader?
Yeah, I would say so, because anything you learn in life, you're going to share that with everyone else. But it's kind of interesting because my story splits into the different stages in my life. Like if we kind of touch it shortly, I think when I was like 8 years old, my focus was like, selling tomatoes on the market. That's what I was like really good at, because my parents would like grow it, and then I would have my own kind of like part where it would grow tomatoes. That's when I was like 8. And then when I was 14, like from 8 to 14, I was playing ping pong professionally. So I was the best in my state back in Ukraine. And then once I turned 14, I started doing parkour. So that's when you like do lots of crazy things. And then I just tore my muscle. And so I was injured for about like 6 months. And then since that time, I switched from ping pong into doing computers because I couldn't like play professional anymore. So I thought like I would just find something else. Since then, like I would have internet only at night. When I was like 14, we would only connected to the internet from like 12 a.m. to 6 a.m. So I would like spend all my nights doing something on the internet. And so this is the time when I started learning about like, security, hacking, and all those things. So that was kind of interesting to me because it's interesting to know how things are built and then how can you find vulnerabilities. So that's when you need to have kind of different state of mind because you need to be on the protective side and also be a hacker because you need to know how to protect systems. So this is when I got into just learning more about the security. And I was like pretty fascinated since then. And then security got better.
I think security, I think security is probably one of the most, probably not one of, but the most important thing in our industry, right? And in terms of the security of, probably the most secure way to store crypto, is still your cold wallet, right? But I think, that's where I think for our industry to move forward, we got to basically figure out how do we keep it secure, but easy for people to use. And I think that's for us, at least when we looked at Trust Wallet, that was like probably it was both easy to use and the most secure. And I think a lot of that goes back to then, I think to your mentality in terms of how to, because security, I mean, for Binance, it starts from scratch. It's not just, software security, hardware security. It's actually physical security is important as well.
Yeah. No, I think it's all like, if you talk about security, it's all about layers, right? So layers start from like, building the app with the right technology, making sure you don't have like any extra dependencies, making sure you have everything closed down, and then, just adding different like features in the mobile app. And also, like you said, like physical security, all those things. But the most important part from all of it is also about like security of the people. So they need to take care of security themselves, right? If you lose your backup phrase, you lost everything. But it's not a fault of, even yourself because you weren't even educated about it. So, it's our responsibility to kind of teach people on how to do security properly, right? Like which ways where can you write down the backup phrase? So we always suggest to do everything offline. Make sure you have like 2 copies at least because, your piece of paper could be just lost or like thrown away. So make sure you have like 2 copies of that. Make sure you like encrypt it or store it somewhere safe on like USB drive or something else. So it's all about just, like so many different layers that you can apply to any security, not specifically even like to wallets.
Yeah. So I'll go into the sort of the next part of our conversation, which is in terms of what do we have to look forward to in terms of a trust wallet, in terms of where do you want to take the product? And I think there's both short-term goals and also I think eventually long-term goals as well, right?
Yeah, I think let's start with a kind of long-term goal. So I think my goal is to allow every person on earth to have access to decentralized finance. So that's kind of eventual goal. By decentralized finance, I mean, you're the guy who controls your funds and, access to decentralized finance. And the second is that you have all the utilities to access that, right? So we still need to build lots of utilities where you can utilize your crypto. But in overall, it's all about giving easy access to all these people in the world. So that's kind of the long-term goal. But if you look at the short-term goal, it's all about like finding the right problems to solve. So I think the first one is like, how do we improve security? Like, how do we make it so it's the regular Joe doesn't need to back up their 12 words? How do we abstract that layer? So that's something where we work on right now, and we have a few ideas how we can solve it in the next 6 months or so. So ideally, if your phone is a personal device that's already encrypted by operation system, what if you can make things to make it even simpler? So you can just press one button and then it just encrypts it somewhere safe. So you're the only one to have access to it. So there is some ideas we currently exploring.
So that goes deeper into hardware software then. It's not just the software issue then at that point.
Yes, exactly. So companies currently working on providing more access to like secure enclave. So companies like Samsung and HTC we're able to provide all the utilities for wallet developers to access secure enclave and store all the private keys. So then you can do signing in a secure way. So that's something that's people still working on. Apple, for example, they currently going to the direction, but it's still not there. Like they still don't provide many of the functionality that we need to actually utilize it. But that's eventual goal. I think every phone will be a hardware wallet by itself with all the tools provided by the operating system.
I think so too, and I think it'll more likely to take place in the less developed world on Android systems or other operating systems, and more I would say open source cell phones versus sort of the Apple fortress.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of Apple just because we getting so many different issues with them. So like one example I'll give you. In the recent probably 2 months, Samsung did amazing job on providing all the utilities for developers, building secure enclave, exposing that functionality, also providing all the utilities to build decentralized applications on top of it. But when you look at Apple, it's the opposite. They've been rejecting us for the past year for building decentralized applications, giving access to them. So that's kind of how you do two sides. One is more decentralized, and another one super centralized, because it could kill their business model. Yeah, so I think future for systems that's more open, and then anyone could just build things on top of it. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, if that's the case, then that opens up because I think ultimately people are going to go for the hardware that has the best software and the best utility. So by not opening themselves up for more applications and build, they might restrict themselves in terms of people looking for the next killer app to use, if that does exist on another system. So this goes back to the early days of Macintosh versus Windows. It sounds like.
Yep, it's still a challenge, right? And no one really knows who will win in this matter. But I'm rooting for open source. I think that's the way to go.
Yeah. And what about more immediately in the short term? What's up? So you know what? Let's jump in a little bit about how Trust Wallet works with the DEX right now.
Yeah, I think so. There's two approaches. So there's two approaches to do kind of the DEX, right? So our goal was to provide a simple way to do swaps. So if you want to trade one token to another, we just wanted to build this in functionality where you just select what you want to trade, and then you just press one button to do the swap. So that's kind of, we wanted to go through, simple UX and just allow anyone just to have that access. But then in the future, we plan to build, the order book, and then kind of building more utility for people to, utilize full functionality of DEXs. But our goal right now was to integrate Binance, and now we just integrated Kyber protocol. So this means you will be able to swap any ERC20 token. And so our goal to just provide decentralized access to any DEX that out there on the market that has volume, because volume is one of the biggest problem of any DEX at this moment. And it's probably attributes to not being able to provide good user experience for the most people. And so with Binance DEX, at least, there is a way for people to build really simple applications on top of it, and because it's fast and easy to access. So that's what could actually trigger, state of mind for people. And it's oh, wow, there's a ways to actually make this nicer. Because if you would use DEX on Ethereum network, that you will see that, long confirmation just caused lots of issues for the users, and it's just not sustainable.
Yeah. And how does the DEX then work for, not necessarily sort of the Binance DEX, but some of the other DEXs out there that you've been working with? In addition to volume, what do you see as another challenge, sort of? Because I think with the incorporation of the DEX, then the utility of the app goes up one huge notch, right? In addition to sort of storage, now you can swap or you can trade, right? But sort of how other than sort of the Binance DEX, and you mentioned Kyber, are there any other ones that you guys are currently looking at? And how does it work from a product perspective? When I do want to swap, do you automate it, or as a user do I get to choose which DEX I want to use?
Yeah, so ideally as a user, all you want is just the cheapest option for you, right? So if you want to swap any token, you just want to get the best rate. And it doesn't really matter like which DEX you'll be using. So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to optimize for efficiency. So whenever a user wants to swap, any token, we'll just find the right market for it, and it will just execute swap for them. So I think that's the goal, right? Like, I don't think it matters like which exchange you use, as long as it's cheaper to use. That's what matters.
So from a user, you don't really see where you're going. All you're seeing is basically the best price that they can get at that moment, right?
Yeah, exactly. But as you can see, the way DEXs are working is, every market will be split into blockchains. So if you want to like swap Binance tokens, it will happen only on the Binance chain, right? If you want to swap your C20s, then it will happen only in Ethereum. So there's also not many options in that sense. And so there's not even a way how to swap Ethereum to BNB, for example. There's just no way you can build those atomic swaps yet. And so that's where we need to actually invest more our resources, knowledge, and building those kind of integrations.
Are we going to bring that to Trust Wallet then?
Yeah, definitely. So I think there is some plans regarding that. So we're working on that. But even though like for us as a wallet, I think our goal is to provide the best experience. But it doesn't mean that we're going to build all the technology. So there's lots of smart people on in space who will be more eligible for working on those problems, not us. I think our goal is to like simplify how you can interact with technology and not to build the technology specifically. But there's
because then if they have the solution then and it's open source, then we can just sort of integrate that solution
exactly
to the wallet. Yeah. And any other short term things that we can look forward to from the features perspective?
Yeah, I think so. There's a few ideas. So I think the first one, as I mentioned, is just simplifying onboarding for people, because one thing to onboard 1 million kind of people, but then like how do you scale to onboard like 100 million? Like you want to make sure that you have the right technology to support it. So that's the challenge. But then the ideas we're currently exploring as well, like how do you make easy access to your hardware wallet even? Like we do consider adding support for like Ledger and Trezor, so you can actually use that to sign your transactions, because even if it's a software wallet, you should be still able to connect to your hardware wallet because it's just the interface. So, and our goal is just to provide the interface for people to interact with different devices. So, and there is different users on different platforms. So if you have like millions of dollars, you probably want to keep that somewhere safe on your ledger with like multisig. And so that's something we can actually explore and add it on our side, because we're trying to provide the best experience in terms of interface and experience. So I think that's the goal for us. So hardware wallet integrations, and then we work on staking. So I think staking for us is one of the most important things to provide and build for the users. And so that's going to come out hopefully in the next like a month or so.
Oh,
so
wow.
you'll be able to stake
that quick. That would be awesome.
Yeah. So pretty much any coin that's supported by Trust Wallet, you will be able to stake. So we're going to start first with Cosmos, and then we'll add more.
Okay. That's really, really cool. And I'm going to start asking this question to most people is going forward is, what do you think of the Facebook? What do you think of the Facebook coin? What do you think of the Libra? And how that's good? How is that not the currency, and then also the embedded Calibra wallet? How is that going to impact our business? And then what do you think of and what do you just in general feedback?
Yeah, I think like I'm looking from the developer's perspective. I would say for sure like what's good in terms of what Facebook is doing. I think what they did well is building good documentation for their infrastructure. So that's what's really missing. If you ever want to contribute to any of these blockchains, you would find yourself confusing because you don't know where to start. There is no documentation. There is no way to learn how to even use this technology, how to write those smart contracts. I think that's where Facebook is doing an amazing job on developer side, because they were able not just to build good technology, but also attract lots of developers who are building things on top of it. And so I was just looking at different repos, and people already built lots of wallets for Libra, and then built smart contracts on creating tokens. So I think their infrastructure is pretty good in that sense. It's definitely going to help lots of crypto people to like. It will help lots of users to know about crypto. And I think that's the main importance. And as long as you learn about crypto, you will find ways how to explore and find different projects out there. So I don't think it's all going to be about like one currency. But what I could tell for sure is that it's going to be much easier to use just because it's permissioned. So that means that it's much easier for people to use on a Facebook. But the question is that would it give you more advantages using Libra over like USD. I think there is more advantages for sure, but there's even better currencies you can find that's permissionless.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it'll be a medium of exchange. I think for sure, especially the Libra currency. But the utility of the Calibra wallet, I think it'll definitely bring a whole new group of user base to cryptocurrency. And I think whatever it is, the net effect is going to be positive for us in the industry today.
Yeah, I like your tweet. I like your tweet about having the Trojan horse. Yeah, remember that? I think it's a good example.
It gets you into the mainstream mindset, right? And to a certain extent, FOMO has started building. I think this is not FOMO, actually. It's not fear of missing out. It's actually peer pressure. Now you have other large social networks, large internet companies now are all exploring their own cryptocurrency, or their own sort of wallet solutions, etc.
Yeah. And I do feel that Facebook is going to be pushing, legislators to move forward with that. So I think, I think everyone will be afraid, like any country, because Facebook could just take over. But, Facebook haven't done a good job on privacy in the past. So I think that's kind of the big concern for me personally.
Yeah. So. But are we gonna have the Libra coin in Trust Wallet?
Yeah, definitely. I think, my goal is to provide, freedom. And then freedom of choice. So I think it's your responsibility to pick which currency you want to use. Yeah, as long as you provide the choice.
That's great. No, I think I'm pretty good for today. Anything else you want to add?
No, I'm good, I think. Yeah, but in general, I think what crypto need to do better is building more utilities for developers, because developers are the people who's going to build all this technology, and that's what's kind of amazing. But we should always start from building experiences for developers, because they're going to be your first users. So if you build really amazing onboarding for them, teach about crypto, how to write code, how to write smart contracts. So this means that you can educate another way for new people who know how to write those applications. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of where I'm like true believer, and I do my best to educate other people on how to utilize technology in crypto.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Victor.
Yeah, thanks so much. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.